This is Tony Kelly, your host of Birmingham Breakthroughs. Our Health is Our Wealth show. Now, my guest on today's show is Dr. David Burton from Manchester. Can I welcome you to the show, Dr. Burton? It's a pleasure to have you. And you are an ophthalmologist. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a tongue twister. I'm a consultant ophthalmologist. I must get that right. So it's good to have you on the show. How are you doing up there in Manchester?
Well, I'm fine, Tony. Thank you for inviting me to the show today to talk to you about a host of my background, but also a host of health conditions. I'm actually, I should correct you before we start. I'm not over in Manchester. I'm up in Yorkshire. So I made the move, but that's okay. It's all right. I made the move over lockdown. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Right. All right. Well, I'm going to start off what we call at the beginning, which is your childhood. Please tell the viewers and listeners some aspects of your childhood, as much as you want to let us know about.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. So I essentially was born in the UK. I was born and raised in Sheffield, on the Seven Hills of Sheffield. My grandfather came across in a Windrush, and he was a labourer. He came to the shores of the UK thinking of dreams and aspirations of a better life than Jamaica, and soon realised that he was working from the bottom up, whereas he reached quite a high echelons of society in Jamaica. But he worked hard. And he succeeded in his path of getting a house and raising a family. And so my mum came across quite early on in the course of her life. She just finished up in this teacher's training in school, and then I was born across here, as I say, in Sheffield. So I was sort of the first generation, you could say, second generation of Jamaican to be in this particular country, and I say born and raised here. I went to school here. I was educated here through primary school, secondary school, and I've had very great interactions with my home country, which I call Jamaica, because it is my home country. And I've been fortunate enough, very fortunate, from the age of around 11, to be able to go back to Jamaica on a biannual or 2-yearly sort of visit to Jamaica, as well as seeing friends and family in the Americas as well. But that's a bit about my background. From a birth point of view, but from a connection with Jamaica, I've always had a strong leaning to realize my history.
Right. So my understanding then is that you are the only child of your mother. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Papa was a Rolling Stone, they say. And so I have a brother who's in Bristol, and also some half brothers in New York as well. And I was fortunate enough to meet them recently. I said recently, back in 2010. So that's the first time I met them. And you know how I met them? Have a guess. Social media, Tony. Social media, believe it or not.
Yes.
So I
And you've met them in the flesh since then.
What's that? Sorry?
In the flesh, social media, but
yeah,
have you met them in the flesh? Okay,
right.
I see.
But it was so I tell you what happened. I did an elective. So an elective is a period of time that you spend in a different part of the world, and I decided to do that elective in Jamaica. And the local newspaper there, the Gleaner, they wrote a piece about my elective, and it was in the Gleaner. And then several years later, just before I was getting married in Jamaica, I got a Facebook message by my brother, my half brother, saying, "We saw this news article, we came across it, and we think that you are my brother." Now, quite obviously, you get a message on Facebook, you tend to think, well, actually, is this real? Is this something that's not quite up to scratch? Is somebody trying to pull the fast one? Well, no, it wasn't. And I already had an inclination that I had brothers in the States, and the various times I would meet my father, he wouldn't really say very much. But the connection came, and we feel we've been so close ever since. We've gone on family holidays and met up as well. So really interesting history and story about me there. But that's my background.
Social media does have its uses. Then that's one brought you all together as a family. So in a sense, so being brought up by your mother, you said, and your grandfather, you were, for want of a better word, you were an only child. I gotta ask you then, David, did your grandfather and your mother spoil you? Spare the rod and spoil the child.
I, I can't even say I wish in this instance, but no spoiling in my case. In fact, whenever I report back to my grandfather, the first question was, because I was quite tall for my age and quite a big guy. He would always ask, "Have you been bullying anybody? Have you been, what have you done in school today? Make sure you've done something, good," and all the rest of it. No, obviously, my mum being a teacher, that was never going to be anything untoward in that regard. But he would always look out for the actions of other people, making sure that they were well taken care of. And obviously, in his mind, he wanted to make sure that I was raised correctly. So I can't say that I was spoiled. I think everything that I've had to do, I've had to work for. And that sort of mentality, I think, helps you explore the world. You realize that things don't come to you easily. You have to sort of put the work in, put the graft in. And you don't always get what you want, but more often than not, you can achieve that success.
Right. So that success meant you passed your what was the equivalent of the 11 plus to
Yeah,
go to high school. And
right.
tell us a bit about high school leading up to,
Yeah.
because you
So,
went to
so
sixth form as well. Mhm.
yeah. So high school for me, actually, at the start, I knew I wanted to do something whereby I'll be helping people. Very early on in my course of education, I wanted to be a police officer because that's what a good proportion of my family are. They're police officers in the Caribbean. They're in the army in the Caribbean, and obviously my mum being a teacher, that we're giving back to the communities that we serve. So that's what I really wanted to do, Tony. But my mum, one growing up, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, she said, "Oh, if you want to be a police officer, you have to be big and strong. And if you're going to be big and strong, you have to eat liver and kidneys." And I hated liver and kidneys, detested them to this day. I can't eat it. So I put two and two together and said, well, actually, you know what? Police officer is not for me. I've got to find another way. And so I decided at that point, I had a keen interest in books and reading. And I had a series of books called How My Body Works. And that was a series of books with also sort of little bits of the body that you could put together, and you could buy them at the newsagents every week. And this got my first sort of inclination into the human body, and anatomy, and then the physiology that comes with it. And that sparked my interest. So my first inclination to sort of medicine probably started at that point in time. So post 16, I knew that medicine was what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to help people in that regard, and use God's gift to sort of of intellect and also of keenness and interest to sort of go in and help people. So I finished with my GCSEs and took my A levels. And I must say at this point, Tony, I didn't get the complete grades that were required at the time to embark on that career and that journey. And I do think things happen for a reason. And at that point in time, I needed an A and two Bs, and I got two Bs and a C. So I missed out. And I thought, well, what do I do next? So do I decide to do something completely different, or do I embark on this journey still? And I combined the two. So I did a degree in orthoptics, which is an allied health profession.
I see.
Helps people, helps kids with their visual development, and also helps adults who have a lazy eye or turn to their eye. And I reapplied to do medicine, and got in. And the path has been gentle ever since. But what I will say is that that difficult period where you think, well, actually, you're not achieving that dream, that you've fallen down. It's really the old adage of, it's not how you fall, it's how you get up, and how you decide to direct your life thereafter, and letting obstacles, which are actually there, it's life, it's part of life. I will say this, doing orthoptics has actually made the job that I currently do as an ophthalmologist that much easier,
Right. So
so much easier, because like I said,
the first degree was 3 years.
it was 3 years, yeah, 3-year degree in orthoptics, which is an eye-related discipline. And then I went on to and now I'm an ophthalmologist. So all of the sort of background work, not all of the background work, but some of the background work that I did as an orthoptist has made that transition to become doing medicine, number one, and then becoming an ophthalmologist thereafter. Easier, and life has been much, it's been good to me. I cannot complain. And as I say, that things are generally put in life. That is life. Falling down and getting up is essentially life.
Okay, but let me ask you something. Between having done the first degree, did you have any credits? Because some of these students thinking of tertiary studies, college, universities, and so on, were any credits awarded for you to then skip some of the years? Because how many years is it to do medicine?
Yeah. So medicine is a 5-year degree. So I could have, Tony, I could have done 5-year degree course in medicine, and then so I'll talk to you about the transition of medicine in a second. But to answer your question, yes, I could have done a 4-year degree, but medicine is already quite challenging at the best of times. And the other thing is, I think with regards to putting added pressure to yourself in life, I see no necessity for that. Life comes with its own added pressures. So whilst I could have gone on to do an accelerated 4-year degree, I would have had less holidays, less time with family, less time socializing. And what I mean by that is seeing friends and enjoying life. I just felt, well, why not just do a 4-year degree, 5-year degree, which is already action-packed at the best of times. So I did a 5-year degree. You do 2 years following that, doing house jobs. So what I mean by that is you do jobs in medicine, surgery, or GP training for 2 years, and then you decide on your speciality. And for me, that was 7 years. So 7 years training as an ophthalmologist. So I am now sort of 10 years plus, just over 10 years within medicine, plus the added 5 years of medical training, plus the added 3 years of orthoptics. So, you know, those years do build up over time. And I'm saying that, you know, why put the extra pressure on yourself with the extra credits that were afforded to me to do an accelerated degree when there's no need to rush through life. Enjoy it at the pace.
And just for people wanting to understand this whole process, as a consultant, for want of a better word, you are top of your tree. Is that fair?
I am. So yeah, that's what you work towards. After that 7-year degree, after that 7-year training as an ophthalmology training, you then embark on your first career job as an ophthalmologist and as a consultant, and that's what I'm doing. So you could say that I'm a junior consultant because I'm just started on that journey, but at the same time, this is what the ultimate aim is for one to get to the end of the road in regards to their training. Formal training, that is, but medicine obviously is lifelong in its training. You're always learning. You're always trying to educate yourself. The books don't get put down. Indeed, they probably intensify. You pick more books up because you need to make sure you're on top of the game. But in terms of the formalities, I am a consultant now.
Take me through. So you then, as a ophthalmologist, specialize in eye conditions and eye diseases. Anyone in particular that you tend to focus on? Because there's so many. There's
So,
there's
yeah, thanks for asking,
diabetes
Tony. Thanks.
retinopathy screening.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think in regards to the divisions, there's lots of different divisions of ophthalmology. So we call that subspecializing. In regards to what I do, I deal with glaucoma, and I'll tell you why that is. Essentially, during my elective in Jamaica, the same elective where I had the write-up from the Gleaner, I actually spent time in an eye clinic, and I worked in a glaucoma clinic, and I saw there very heart-wrenching stories where patients in Jamaica were having to decide between treatments and feeding their loved ones. And the care that was afforded to them was phenomenal. The doctors out there are great. It's just the care that they could afford to the patients in regards to the medications, for example, it was lacking because patients couldn't afford the treatments, especially the ones that are easily affordable to us here in the UK. So I came back following that elective. That was in the end of my medical training, before going into the house jobs and deciding on ophthalmology as a career, thinking, well, actually, this is something that I really want to get to grips with. This is something that I want to be at the center of, because if I'm able to, during the course of my working lifetime, make those changes that would actually have a big impact on people in the Caribbean and broader speaking people around the world, then I can say I've done something positive during the course of my lifetime. And I'm hoping to realize that, as I say.
Okay. For the benefit of the listeners and viewers, Dr. Burton, what exactly is glaucoma? Not to be confused with having a cataract or
Very good question. Very good question. So you touched on diabetes. Diabetes can touch the back of the eye and cause problems with blurred vision, and cause problems with the retina, which does the interpretation of the world. The light sources enter the retina and then fed back to the brain for interpretation. So what you see is interpreted by the brain. What is glaucoma? Well, glaucoma is a condition linked to the pressure inside the eye. And when the pressure becomes such a problem, it can actually directly have an impact on the nerve at the back of the eye. And that can lead to visual deterioration or visual loss. And essentially, it's been described like tunnel vision. I hate that analogy, but it's something that's easily digestible. But it's an encroachment of the visual field being affected in the periphery and then coming in centrally. So the peripheral visual field is the visual field that's out here, where you can see my hands moving, but you're looking at my face. That works its way in centrally. Now, the problem with that is that you tend not to notice it. Because it's in the periphery, we don't look in the periphery all the time. You may well rely on it. You rely on it if you're driving and your cars are coming from the side, or noticing a spider walking across the floor. You'll see it before it ends in your central vision. But the fact is, we don't actively look out for it. And the other thing is, you've got two eyes. We've been blessed with two eyes, so one eye can compensate for the other. So the diagnosis of glaucoma is a tricky one to make. And so I would implore people listening today to, at least if you're able to see an optician at least once every 1 to 2 years, so they can do a very easy screening test to look and to check the pressure of the eyes and do a general eye health exam. The other thing is, if you do have a family history of this condition, then you are able, and it's afforded in the UK at least, to have free eye test after the age of 40. This is as of standard from today. So I think that's the other thing to mention. If you have a strong family history of glaucoma, so it's very important for you to know whether or not you have relatives, first degree, meaning brothers and sisters, or your mum and dad. If they have glaucoma, then you're afforded an eye test for free in this country, in the UK.
Okay. Let me ask you, remember the Birmingham's Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Wealth show, is geared towards the African Caribbean community. Are Black people on the whole more susceptible or more prone to developing glaucoma?
Unfortunately, the answer to that question, unfortunately, the answer to that question is yes. It's of unknown sort of quantity as to why, or unknown why that particular is attributed to Black people. But we know we're at a higher risk of the condition itself. The other thing is, because of particular factors outside of the control of our genetic makeup, we tend to have aggressive forms of the condition as well. And so the treatments for the condition include eye drops, laser treatment, and surgery. But you need to speak to your ophthalmologist to sort of further extrapolate what is the best course of action. But we are at more risk, and I think there are a series of conditions that we are more at risk for, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in a second. But glaucoma is one of those conditions, and again, it's why I'm paying a keen focus to it as a glaucoma specialist, somebody with a specialist interest in glaucoma. And I think that to help our community realize and understand that it is something that we need to pay attention to. So having those yearly to 2 yearly regular eye tests in the optician community first and foremost, and if there's any particular problems, they can refer you on to the hospital.
Right. Thanks for that. I hope the listeners take that on board, because there's nothing better than having your eyesight more than ending up going blind. I firmly believe that to be the case.
And I completely say, because I just want one other thing there, Tony, on that aspect. Blindness in this regard, we can put years on the eyesight, and unfortunately, with respect to glaucoma, whatever vision you do lose, it's very difficult to get back. It's very difficult to get back, if at all any, and that's because it damages the part of the eye that does not have the capacity to regenerate and grow again.
Just supplement your question, which is not on the screen there. You mentioned sometimes it's hereditary, so it might run in a family. But let's look at, we used to hear as a child, eat a lot of carrots, it's good for your eyesight. So let me ask you, is there any particular food or diet which we as Black people need to be thinking of taking, food or drinks or diet, so that it would give us a better chance in terms of prevention and making sure eyesight?
Tony, really good question. So we know that diets will affect the health of the back of the eye. So foods which are quite high in carbohydrates and sugars and such are not the best for eye health. And we know that from a diabetic standpoint, where diabetes does affect the Black community. We need to really be mindful of that. So reducing carbohydrates, sugar, whatever you want to call it in that regard, reducing that intake, or at least whatever goes in must be burnt out. So, looking at your diet, looking at the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating, and spending that by working out, going to the gym. I'm sure you go to the gym
I do
quite
indeed.
regularly.
I do indeed.
So,
Yeah.
that sort of thing is the best for you. In regards to things specifically for eye health, we know green leafy vegetables, things like spinach, cabbage, kale, are good for your general function of eye health. So we encourage people you may have heard of a condition called macular degeneration.
Yes.
We encourage those patients to incorporate those particular foods into their diet. And I think there's nothing that can be said more so than having a balanced diet with vegetables, with fruits, to sort of help with your eye health. And obviously rehydration as well, that's the other thing. So making sure you're drinking the ample amount of water that you should be intaking in a daily session.
Okay. Now, we're going through a second lockdown, and you're going to be part of that. How has that impacted on you trying to do your clinics, your surgery, etc.? Because COVID-19 has sort of just taken over. And I know, especially within the cancer field, people have ended up operations being cancelled, they're not getting the medication, they're not being referred, and so on. Are you able to do all the things that you would under normal circumstances do, or has that had a knock-on effect in terms of a backlog of work? Tell us a bit about that, please.
So in regards to the work that I do, a lot of it is face-to-face. So we do heavily rely on patients coming to our clinics, and we've had significant numbers of patients who either we've had to restrict through physical distancing because we can't have the same number of patients coming into clinic, or patients who decide that they don't want to come in because they're worried about the risk of picking up the infection itself. And what I would say to all patients is that you should not suffer in silence. You should not suffer in silence. You must interact with healthcare professionals if you're having difficulties and problems. Quite obviously, if there are no particular issues at hand, then and you feel you want to not come into the service, then that's a different thing entirely. But if you're under active surveillance, active monitoring for a condition, then you need to be seen. If you have new symptoms that have developed, then you need to be seen. Please do not suffer in silence. The COVID itself is something that has affected people and will continue to affect people, unfortunately. But at the same time, you've got to think about the other health conditions that are out there, because they don't stop. They're still going on, and we can't lose sight of that. And so from my point of view in the glaucoma service, yes, I'm seeing less patients, but we're slowly picking that up now. Patients are coming back into the building, which is fantastic. Patients are having operations in very safe environments. I think, Tony, the one thing I will stress is that I can only speak on my experience, but I'm sure I can share it along with my colleagues, that hospitals have worked tirelessly to make sure that their conditions afforded to patients are safe. We don't want patients coming in, picking up viruses, and having untoward events occurring for them. Quite obviously we don't. But at the same time, we want patients to come in to an environment that is safe, and we've provided that safety in numbers. We've got the adequate staff on board, we've got the adequate provisions to separate patients out, and we feel that we're doing all that we can to mitigate the risk of picking up COVID whilst in the hospital.
Let's just continue the COVID-19 theme then, in terms of, do you have a take from your medical experience, etc., of why is it that within Britain, let's just talk about Britain, the disproportionate number of people who have died from COVID-19 are Black, who have also contracted the disease, and who have also ended up in intensive care units. You have a take as to why that has happened amongst our ethnic group?
Sure. I think it's a multifactorial thing. What I mean by that for the listeners is there are many different tiers and elements. But the one that I would like to focus in on, I think, is that we've already had this imbalance of health inequality. And what COVID has done is just really shone the light on it. Okay? I'm not saying that just because I'm an ophthalmologist and I like light and I talk about eyes. I'm being serious when I say that I think it's just shining a light on that. And it's just opened up and ripped open that wound that was already there. Okay, and so those inequalities of health have always existed to a greater or lesser extent. And the analogy that I would use is if you look on the high street, why is it that some shops have remained open and some shops have had to close? Because some shops were operating just on the finite balance of things. And COVID has again shone a light on the fact that they cannot exist. And you can see that physically on the high street. What you can't see is how that has occurred with inequalities across the board with respect to people who are Black, Asian, and the like. You can't see that. Okay, you may be able to see part of it, but you can't physically see those inequalities. And what we're trying to do is realize what those inequalities are. Well, we know what some of them are. Some of them are access to health. Some of them are in relation to how people are viewed within a health system in itself, and the hierarchical systems that will occur in that regard. But again, broadly speaking, I think, Tony, to answer that question in a nutshell, it's really just focusing on COVID has basically just broken down that open wound, and now we're seeing the extremities of extremes of that.
Okay, so I'm going to say, are you the eternal optimist where you think this is a wake up call for government, for the health service, clinicians, healthcare professionals, etc., and we will now begin to see changes to redress the balance in terms of racial inequalities, health inequalities, systemic racism? Do you, thinking ahead, do you a magic ball in front of your crystal ball? You think things will change for the better in years to come after we've been through
You
this
know,
pandemic?
I think slow marches, slow changes will occur. That's my belief, and I think maybe some of these changes will be more personal than across the board. You know, I've been afforded particularly a great career and a great transition through my career to where I am today. And you know, personally, those experiences may be few and far between, but I would hope that we can build upon that together going forward. And I guess only by shining a light on things, maybe this is a silver lining. I would never pray for COVID to occur now or ever again, but maybe this is one of the silver linings in that it seems to have created that exposure, that movement towards creating a better and fairer society.
All right. Let me move on to a bit of a lighter subject. And you work hard, and it is said people who work hard are supposed to play hard as well. What does Dr. Burton do to relax? You have a family. Tell us a bit about your family and how do you relax, pastimes, chill out, so to speak.
Sure. So my downtime comes with family. I was going to say playing with family, but it's more a lot of what we do at home is just playful and fun and just relaxed. Yeah, the job that I do is quite stressful. The job that my wife does is quite stressful. And you know, raising children can be quite stressful as well. But at the same time, there has to be that enjoyment, that reflection, and that's what I tend to do. So what do I do personally? So just playing with my son and having fun and enjoying downtime. One thing that I realized, and I alluded to this earlier, you can rush through life. I could have done an accelerated program in 4 years, but again, you've got to have some enjoyment. So what do I like to do? I like to run. I think that gives me a time just to reflect on things. I've recently sort of completed a run for prostate cancer awareness UK, raising money for that as a side project. But that wasn't the reason I did it. I've just decided to run. So I've run 50 miles for the month. I like exercising. So part of my wage, as well as going on mortgage and bills, goes to the gym, because I think that's a really good way to unwind, a good place to spot to also build social connections. But also, you know, having connections through my son. So he goes to, I go and take him to rugby. So he goes and plays, and I talk to the other fathers there, and you know, we're able to socialize in that respect. So having downtime is fantastic. Sharing time with my wife as well when we can, outside of the home. You know, it's something that you have to do. You have to set aside your mind to get away from the work. Whilst I enjoy my work, I think it's always good to have that downtime.
Right. Now, you did mention sort of trips to Jamaica, so traveling must be part of the.
Yeah, keen traveler. So, you know, we've got a couple of holidays now that are on standby. Most recently, we wanted to head across to Ghana. That was our last trip, but we had to postpone that. And it would have been great to go to the Cape Coast and take our little boy across there to see that part of West Africa. from a historical perspective. But yeah, I would love to travel, been to the Americas, been to the hotspot at the moment, China. We've been across to China. We recently came back from Panama. So Panama was the start of this year. So I think this, I feel very blessed to be able to do and see the things I've seen, to travel the world and to see different cultures, different peoples, because it gives you an appreciation for life. And I'm trying to teach that to my little boy, that appreciation. How do you appreciate what you have? Well, I think you need to see what's out there in order to do that. And again, traveling gives you that insight.
Okay. So let me then ask you to focus on the younger viewers watching this, those who are at high school or college and sort of wanting to make decisions about their future career. What advice you would give to them in terms of if they wanted to go down the medical route that you went down? What should they be doing at in terms of subjects and
Yeah.
if they don't get 3 A's, because you said you didn't get 3 A's, and I find that a fascinating story that you still managed to go via another route and maintain and reach up the ladder. So that's to be appreciated. So it's not the end of the world if they don't get 3 A's to go into Oxford or Birmingham University to do medicine or Cambridge.
It's not the end of the world. So, as I said, certain things happen during the course of your lifetime. What you need to do is try and establish what it is that you may well want to do. And it's very difficult to make that decision early on. But certain things will navigate that sort of route and course. But also certain things will be stacked against you in that regard. And certain pressures will be built upon your back. And it's just how you navigate those pressures. My pressure was question 13, page 13 of a maths paper during A-level. And I remember the question, and I will remember it to my death, because at that moment in time, I realized I couldn't answer that question, and that was my medical career, I thought at that point in time, down the pan. So there will always be something that sticks in your mind as regards to how you feel that you can, whether it's a negative connotation to how you are going to go about the course of your life. But don't let that be the deciding factor, is what I would say. So going back to your question, Tony, what is it that you can do? If you want to go down the line of medicine, then obviously science disciplines do count highly, but that does not mean that you cannot go on and study medicine if you're artistic, for example. So if you're interested in music and art and histories and geography and such, but you should do some science disciplines. The first thing is to look up what requirements are for the universities that you want to apply to. So look early on, so in 13, 14, think about it from that age, because it's a really good idea to get into your mindset what it is that you need. So planning is key. Okay. So science disciplines, maths. So I did physics, chemistry, maths. Those are the 3 disciplines that I did for my A-levels. But again, that does not stop you. If you do not excel in that particular discipline, you can always find something that is akin to medicine. So there are things like nursing, as I mentioned, orthotics, biomedical sciences, where you're in the lab-based kind of environment mostly. And all of those will give you an avenue to get back into the medicine train later on if you wanted to. And that's exactly the role that I took. I chose orthotics, for example, because I knew it would set me apart from anybody else that was applying into medicine thereafter. So research what you need to get into medicine from an A-level standpoint, but don't be disheartened if you don't, because it's quite a competitive field to get into. But just know that when people are reviewing your forms, they're paying attention, and that you need to do things that will set you apart. Right. Now, in terms of life experience, some of the things that have traditionally been found to be helpful to get into medicine have been those in the caring profession. So if you went to a nursing home, or you were working in an area where, a daycare center, those kind of things have been helpful. And those are the kind of things that I did as well. But you've got to try again to find things that will set you apart, that would make you set you apart from the crowd, disciplines that you would that may well spark an interest in the person that's reading your form. And that's a very personal thing.
Yes. And that ability to be able to communicate with people and be at and show some empathy and be at ease with people. But I'm fascinated by the fact that I always had this view, pardon my ignorance, and there are lots of doctors in my family, I've never asked them the question. I thought it was sort of standard procedure that you have to do biology. You said physics, chemistry, and maths, and I didn't hear biology mentioned at all.
You don't have to. No, you don't. It's funny, isn't it? You don't have to.
Listening and the other young people listening hear
Yeah,
this
and,
because
and and I think it's a good idea to do biology. Don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to say here is that you don't have to. I've known people who have applied to medicine who have gone down the engineering route and
road.
then gone into
Okay,
medicine.
right.
So it, what will make things interesting? I'm not saying that everybody carte blanche should not do biology, but what makes it interesting is if you come from a route that is a little bit left or right field. I'm not saying left or right is good at this point in time, given the current elections. But
Right.
my point is that setting yourself apart is key, and I think as long as you show, as you said there, the empathy, the compassion, the drive and determination to want to do that particular discipline of medicine, however you show that, is the key.
Right. Let me then. You're a prolific writer. I know you write lots of books and articles in medical journals and so on. Um, Tell us a bit about that, please.
Yeah, so I've written a couple of chapters in medical textbooks, and I think partly it's out of the desire to sort of set your name in stone. That's something that I can now say and tick off the old bucket list. But also it's partly of a want or a desire to do something positive. Now, in terms of articles and such that I've written, have been within the medical framework. So articles on diabetic retinopathy, for example, and glaucoma, which are the two biggest components of eye health, I would suggest. So part of that is, again, through the work and what is emphasized in terms of your commitment to medicine. This is something that should come with the grain. If you're quite interested in a particular division of medicine, then writing and trying to advance medicine forward is part of your nature. It's part of your makeup. And as I said to you earlier, my drive to become a glaucoma specialist was born out of the idea, partly down to the fact that what I saw in Jamaica at the time in 2006. So how do I advance that? Well, it's research, it's research, and it's research. It's trying to get to grips with the condition and how you can move that condition forward. If I can't use drops because a patient can't afford it, well, what can I try and employ? And in that regard, what's very interesting is we're finding that there's a laser machine that you can utilize to reduce the pressure. And if we could just offer that to patients without a cost, because remember, there's an ongoing cost with drops, that has to be manufactured, whereas a laser can just be directed to the eye and it's done, then that would be very beneficial. And there's movement in that regard as well. So, keep on moving with the industry, keep on moving with medicine, and reflecting in that regard, and research is key.
Okay, Dr. Burton, you're also the chair of the Jamaica Diaspora UK health group. There's a health group. Jamaican Diaspora UK has a health group, and you're the chair of that. Share with some of the. Although it says Jamaican, it doesn't mean other people can't listen in on webinars and so on. Share with us some of this stuff you have done around that particular, especially during lockdown. Because
Yeah. So this is something I've been quite passionate about. And the reason for this is because, again, it's about moving people forward. During lockdown, obviously, there was great concern about the inequalities of health. So we wrote, as part of our forum, a letter to the Minister of Health in regards to actioning some of those inequalities and trying to realize how we could put together action plans. So we wrote a letter. Now, whilst and then literally a couple of days later, there was a response from the government. Now, whilst we can't hold ourselves to any value in that regard, I think that it sets a picture. If you get many people speaking on a particular topic, and there's a passion in the community for that, then I think it's very difficult for a government not to respond. So that's one of the first and foremost things, and that's available on the Jamaica Diaspora UK website. Now, the other thing is, as you said, that we as a health forum and a branch of the Jamaica Diaspora UK, we've looked to try and find ways of interacting with our communities. And so we've held a series of monthly health webcasts on topics such as diabetes. So we're going to touch on that next month, hopefully. But first and foremost, we had the launch back in June of 2020, where we touched on topics of diabetes and cancer, breast cancer. We've explored breast cancer to a greater extent. We've talked about organ transplantation, we've talked about mental well-being, And last month, we talked about prostate cancer and the disproportionate effects that that's having in the Black community. So we're trying to raise the bar further than it has been, and we keep pushing that bar in terms of discussion about health inequalities, but also how health has affected the Black community, but also communities across the board. And it's about educating patients about and caregivers with regards to health conditions that affect us disproportionately.
And all of these webinars are available still permanently on the Jamaican Diaspora UK website. So people who are
Correct.
hearing
So the
about them for the
sources,
first time can go and watch
yeah,
them.
yeah, the sources for them are on YouTube. So if you look for Jamaican Diaspora UK, if you search for Jamaican Diaspora UK, if you Google, sorry, if you search for that on YouTube, you'll be able to find the links to all of those webcasts that we have. And similarly, if you look on Facebook as well, you can find all of the recordings. We had Mr. Motivator
I was just going to
on talking
mention.
about mental health and well-being, and it was a fantastic discussion. And I think, re-entering lockdown, as you know, today's the 4th of November 2020. Re-entering lockdown in a couple of tomorrow. It's a good thing to revisit. How can you keep your mental health strong in this particular moment in time? So it's a good fallback. So I implore people to watch that.
Yes, that good plug. Um, Let me ask you then, in terms of wrapping up now, what final thought would you want to give to viewers, listeners of this Our Health is Our Wealth show? You've done a very varied career in health. Then you've gone into specialism, diseases of the eye, etc. When you think of your journey, what would you want as a sort of a parting shot, final thought to give to people listening in?
So I think let's use my journey as an example. So from very early on, I had the obstacle of potentially not fulfilling my dream, but you have to live your dream. You have to try. You have to try and excel as best you can. Live your life accordingly. Enjoy it, but you have to try and excel. So that little bump in the road actually wasn't a bump. It was just a curve. It was a curve in the right direction. So that curveball that people talk about, thinking it's a bad thing, actually can be a great thing. And I think that that's the first thing I would say. Using again my journey as an example, as an ophthalmologist, I see a range of conditions that would affect the back of the eyes and the front of the eyes. So we talked a little bit about glaucoma. We talked a little bit about diabetes, and that can affect the back of the eye as well. There's a little bit about cataract as well. So cataract is a clouding of the lens inside the eye. That again is a condition that can affect your eyes and reduce the vision. And what I'm trying to say is that's a very curable, very easily curable condition. So my second tidbit really would be for you to see an optician in the community for a general eye screen. And remember that if you have a family history of glaucoma, then you are afforded an eye check post age 40 for free. So take the NHS up on that offer. We are in a part of the world that affords us this health system, so make the use of it. And finally, I was going to just say, in regards to my position as in the Jamaican Diaspora UK Health and Wellbeing arm, it's imperative for us all to take our health seriously. Yes. Your health is your wealth. I love that term.
Thank you.
You need to invest in it. That's the key. Investing in your health. Because we talk about money, we'll invest in money, we'll talk about it, we'll try and save a bit of money here and spend a bit of money there. But actually your health is what really will determine your outcomes in life. So invest in it.
Yeah, I like that. Well done. Dr. Burton, I have to give you thanks. Big you up. You're my second male guest on the show. I'm surrounded by a lot of women, all wanting to come on this Our Health is Our Wealth show. So that's a plea for viewers out there as well. If you know of any men out there doing wonderful things like what you're doing in the community, giving back and making sure healthcare, eye care, prevention is better than cure, the well-known saying. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Dr. Burton. I was really looking forward to this, and you've certainly shared with us quite a lot. And I honestly hope that people listening in will start thinking, oh, based on some of the tips and advice you've given, they'll start taking more care of their eyes, because that's one of the most important organs in the human body.
It is. I see what you did there. That's how you see it. I like that. No, so no, thank you very much for inviting me
You're
on
welcome.
to the Breakthrough TV special. I really feel blessed that you would invite me on as a guest. You're a great host, and thank you for the questions. Really great questions.
Okay.
I just wanted to leave by saying you can contact me. I'm more than happy for people to contact me if they would like information, advice, that sort of thing. My website is davidsmburton.com. You can Google me. I'm sure you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn as well. And I say I'm currently the chairperson of the Jamaican Diaspora UK Health and Wellbeing Arm. And again, happy to answer any questions by email. Please contact me. Feel free. I'm more than open. And thanks again, Tony, for inviting me on.
Welcome, and thanks for coming on in your busy schedule, because you have an appointment. We finished at just about time because your appointment starts anytime now. Okay.
Like any great people, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks to our sponsors, the Afro-Caribbean Millennium Center, Dudley Road, New Style Radio, 98.7 FM, Breakthrough Media Studios, and Breakthrough TV.